nerds. This is Tripp. You're listening to Homebrewed Christianity. And today on the podcast, you're going to meet the team behind the movie Camp Manna. Camp Manna is a hilarious movie about a Christian camp. And you're going to discover that this movie is packed full of jokes. If you grew up in conservative evangelicalism and experienced youth camp, it's packed full of jokes about that culture, that subculture. But it's done so with love. It's done so by people who grew up and are trying to work out how to laugh at that part of their past and appreciate and cherish all that, the positive parts that were given there. And that's what you're going to hear in this conversation. We recorded it in person while we were hanging out in a room at Colonial Church in Minneapolis. We were just hanging out, and at some point in it, we realized there's supposed to be a breakout session in the room we're in. So we stopped and go to another room and kept going, which is how the podcast ended up being on the long side. I've heard from people that that they're not surprised when they're a long podcast. And if they're in person, it's harder for me to have them be shorter, because then I'm just hanging out with somebody, and I like to have a good conversation. And that's what happens here. So Camp Manna, you want to go check it out, Google it, or go to your iTunes, which is the best way to support an indie film, from what I hear. So you get it on iTunes. You can pre-order it right now. Comes out in June. Pre-order it right now, Camp Manna. And then when it comes up, you'll go, boom. This is a comedy about a conservative Christian camp that explores the power of friendship and transcends a lot of the assumptions that probably brought all those people together. It's a zesty film, and it was totally cool hanging out with the guys behind it. So enjoy it. In the meantime, theology nerds, come over and join the community. Homebrewedcommunity.com. Yeah, that's the people who are in the private Facebook group. People who get to know things first, give input to things. They're the ones who support this podcast. And by supporting this podcast, I mean the people who donate every month. That means Tripp can keep doing all the podcasting and stuff he does. And which is good, because I have a PhD and there's not a lot of jobs, especially ones where they have benefits for your children or pay enough to pay off your student loans. So, it's kind of like you are a patron of someone with a PhD in philosophy, religion, and theology who makes podcasts. And if that doesn't float your boat, then I can give you a different reason. I don't know what it is. Maybe you just like listening to podcasts when you go to sleep. And you have found that some podcasts are too short. They're only like 20 minutes, 45 minutes. You're like, I need all podcasts over an hour. And I really try to do my best to do that for you. No? Yeah. Anyway, homebrewedcommunity.com. Thank you for everyone that is a member, been a member, new members, supporters. And I look forward to seeing you. And remember, if I've never bought you a pint and you're a member, then the first time we hang out, you let me know and I buy you a pint and we're going to talk. I got to buy 2 people their first pints the other day. It was exciting. I said, ha, a member I met in person. Boom, shakalaka. All right, here we go. Enjoy Camp Manna. So, how about y'all introduce yourselves so they can attach a voice, so you can say your name and like
very good at this,
and what you do, what you like, what your role was in Camp Manna. But then, what was the movie you watched that made you want to make movies?
Okay,
good. I'm gonna let you answer that one first, because most of mine go back to
the Buttercream Gang.
The Buttercream Gang. No, I'm
Koons.
Yeah, Koons is here as well. Let's get him here.
They don't know any of your names yet.
Yeah.
So
get it to it.
Yeah, my name is Evan Koons. I'm a co-producer on the movie, and I played Bradley in the movie, Counselor Bradley, the uncool counselor. And the movie that maybe was the thing that said, I want to do this was, I think, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. That was, maybe I'm showing my hand too much here. Ooh, don't, that's a bad joke. Yeah. Next.
Paul Rubens.
No hand jokes at Paul Rubens.
No. How big was that adventure?
My name is Eric Machiela. I'm one of the writer-directors of Camp Manna. And Camp Manna, even though it's like a comedy, right, and a satire that takes, like, parodies the 80s, 90s camp film experience, the film that, like, made me want to make movies was nothing like that. It was back to Costner's Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Oh.
Well, I don't know what
we do have bows and arrows in the movie.
It's true.
Yes.
Yeah, I loved that movie. Specifically remember acting it out afterwards, in the backyard with way too much Taco Bell in my stomach.
No girlfriends were there.
No, very lonely days.
Well, it has.
I mean, I was like 9. So
but y'all didn't get Bryan Adams to do a song in Camp Manna soundtrack.
He's probably available too.
But we did get Gary Busey too.
I know. But what would Bryan Adams sound like singing "Jesus is a Friend of Mine"? Oh, that's a
he would
good
make
question.
you like that song. He would. You would love it. You'd play it back.
Everything I do. I was at a Christian. I did a wedding. This is Jesus, where they edited the line in that song at a wedding where it says, "I'll lie for you," because they were like, that's a 10 commandment. I'll lie for you, walk the wire for you. But they're like, it's at a wedding. So, in honor of the Big 10, I'm not going to lie for my wife.
So was it just
and I'm
hard
like,
cut?
Have you been? No, they just said something else.
I'll cry for you.
Y'all cry for you. You're like, have you been married? Like, I'm pretty sure lying happens. Obviously not in my marriage, right, Alicia? But yeah, I was like, that was the funniest edit of a Bryan Adams song at a wedding. They're like, we don't want to condone lying at a wedding. Start the relationship off bad. Anyway, sorry.
That's great.
I haven't thought about Bryan Adams in a while. I appreciate this. It's been a bit. Since I thought about BA.
Yeah, I mean, you just going to pull out that Waking Up the Neighbors album?
Mm-hmm. Cuts Like a Knife. Was that on there too?
Oh, praise the Lord.
Okay, we got one more here.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm Eric Johnson, the other Eric, the other director, the other co-writer. I'm the tall one.
Which is important for a podcast.
It is very important in case you don't recognize me somewhere. That movie that made me want to do this, honestly, it was the opposite of that. It was the movies I was forced to watch as a child that made me want to do this. I grew up extremely conservative. I was homeschooled growing up. And we had like a library of like 4 films that we could watch on repeat. Thank you, Dr. James Dobson. And we had to watch these. They were bad, man. They were rough. I mean, the Buttercream Gang. Just the name alone tells you there's not a lot of thought going into.
What was the plot of that one?
Well, you had these white kids, and then there were some other white kids, and then they worked out their differences and loved Jesus. Watching that on repeat.
Like a Dove Award winner.
Oh, yeah. Watching that on repeat for the first 13 years of your life will make you want to make something different.
But sometimes like you're like, I can at least do that good. You're like, all I got to do is beat the Buttercream Gang. And
let's not do that one often either, huh? Yeah. It's a really dangerous title.
Yeah. I want to have a film festival, and I want to go from Pee-wee's Magic Big Adventure, very large adventure, to the Buttercream Gang, and then round it out with Camp Manna.
That sounds great, actually. Yeah. I would attend. No, but watching stuff like you get like this sort of indoctrination. They're almost, all this agenda-driven content, and then you go like, yeah, it's like what you're saying. Like, I could do better than this, and then you sort of, grow up and escape that world a little bit and get some balance to your perspective. But you don't lose some of those core values. Of course, at least we didn't, right? So it's like, so how do we make a film then that, has a lot of fun with and exploits sort of the ridiculousness of a repressive culture like that, but also does it in a way that doesn't throw the whole thing under the bus. And I think that's something you see often, or at least I do with my generation or folks that at least had an upbringing like mine. You reach this nexus where you sort of look at it and you go, I either have to sort of like drink the Kool-Aid or none of this is for me.
Right.
And I think it was really interesting for us to explore what does it look like to make a film that sort of tries to walk that tightrope in between and go like, we can make fun of this. There's a lot of weird stuff associated with sort of the culture that we came from. But at the same time, like there's so much good and often that gets lost. You know, you look at a film like Religulous. Like, do you remember this Bill Maher film?
Yeah.
Honestly, that film is hilarious to me. But then you get to that part where it sort of leapfrogs the whole point, right? Like you can sort of go like, this culture is hilarious and yet sort of miss the goodness in it at the same time, right? And I think that's what we were trying to do with the film, to say like, it's okay to sort of lampoon this, but at the same time, like, let's capture the heart and soul of it. And so I think that was really motivated by watching a lot of bad movies.
Well, like with Religulous or whatever, like Bill Maher, what he's doing in that film is he's on the outside looking in and poking fun, right?
Right.
So even though some of it is humorous and funny, you can tell like he's got no respect really for what's at the core and the tenets of faith and things. And I think that that's maybe hopefully Camp Manna is nothing like Religulous, you know, it's more like Saved, right? When people talk about it, they compare it to Saved.
Well, one of the differences I think between Camp Manna and Saved is, well, a larger portion's funny. Like Saved misses on certain beats.
Wow.
Like,
Really pumping us up here.
I like that.
No, I'm just saying like, and Saved, the hero of Saved is not the outcast, and the resolution of Saved is a clear ideology piece, not friendship.
Right.
So like Camp Manna is like, when you think back to crazy youth experiences in camps and stuff, well, that's funny. And I can imagine when you say you had a bunch of stuff cut out, like if I sat down with my friends from youth group, the amount of things that you go like, would someone that didn't go believe this happened?
Yes.
You know?
Oh, we
it's
get
significant.
That. Like, yeah, in the movie we get that. We're like, where did you come up with a, completely Bible themed golf course? How do you think of that? And it's like, we just saw one and then we put it in the movie.
We saw one in Kentucky online and we were like, that's got to go in Camp Manna.
And so to me, there's for those that didn't drink the Kool-Aid and stay, but you know that the friendships and the experiences that happened during the crazy are something that should be honored and affirmed.
Yes.
Like making fun of the silly, but that the relationships and personal transformations are actually at the center of the film, I think is important. And I didn't think that they did that as well during Saved, but.
Well, you know what? I think about Saved, and I actually really love Saved for the most part, but there is a bit of a cynicism in it. Like you can feel the filmmakers had maybe a little bit more wounds and baggage they were working out through the film, whereas ours is more of a celebration of kind of the oddities and attributes of Christian subculture. And I think hopefully that's the difference.
I remember watching Saved when I was, I guess it would have been maybe 20.
Came on in 04, I think.
Yeah. So it'd been about 20. And, I remember watching it and
like
for me, like it spoke to me. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It spoke to, like, for me, I needed that at that time, right? Like I was feeling extremely sort of trapped where I was. So somebody just sort of opening the door and saying like, it's okay to just come up for air for a second. For me, like that was a refuge. And I think it was really formative for me to just say like, okay, I have permission. But that's where I was at. And there was a ton of people around me that I think couldn't handle that at the time. And I remember thinking like, if this film offends you, like it must be about you in some ways. But I think we carried that into Camp Manna and went like, our agenda here is to have no agenda. Our goal is not to isolate ourselves and alienate people. Our goal, I think, is to unpack some of the oddity of what's going on, to be able to find solidarity with those that also need to laugh at it, like when you talk about your friends from youth group or whatever. Yeah. But could we do it in a way that doesn't have an entire demographic go like, oh, that freaks me out, or that offends me, or, push back on it? Could we build a film that walked that tightrope? And the way we describe it to people, it's really fascinating, because when you watch an audience full of people watch this movie, that first 20 minutes, dude, it's like everyone is trying to figure out what this is.
Yeah.
They're just like, okay, are we being made fun of? Like, are they with us? Are they against us? Like, you can't tell because you don't know the characters. You don't know the arc of the story. And that first sort of turn happens. And suddenly, like, you feel the audience sort of like sink in. And what I tell everybody, they're like, well, you know, will my dad like this movie? And I'm like, if you get him to the end, he will. You know, if you get him to all the way to that sort of the end of this thing where you can sort of see what we're doing, where we're trying to balance lampooning a culture versus also loving it at the same time. But it takes sort of that investment.
And you had said like the agenda of the film was no agenda, which isn't entirely accurate because what you mean, I think, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't have your traditional sort of like faith-based film agenda where we always say like no sassy sermons, no altar calls, you know, no scenes in a church, for example. But really, I mean, what we wanted to do with the film is create that cathartic experience. Like the agenda of the film is entertainment first and catharsis alongside that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes from where I was talking about. Like we Eric and I bring very different perspectives based on how we were raised, and I think that creates a really kind of nice spectrum for the movie. Because for me, I think I automatically go to words like agenda because everything that I digested was agenda driven.
So agenda driven.
If you think of just as a generation, take Christianity out of it. You know, we're this generation that's been marketed to since the day we were born, just nonstop, you know. I got Nerf commercials memorized from like 7 years old, you know, like just constant barrage. But then you add a layer of sort of Christianity and Christian culture taking that on and all of a sudden going like, and how do we turn everything into a faith-based sort of commercialized asset? Everything I was interfacing with my entire childhood was agenda driven. And so to step back and go, okay, how do we create something that is sort of more objective than that? It's a tricky tightrope. And I think that, you know, for us, even looking at it now, you know, walking down the middle of it is a constant, certainly daily decision making. Even when it comes to this, like publicity, press, things like that. Okay, what is the perspective of the audience that listens to your podcast? What is the perspective of the audiences that we're talking to? And how will they interpret what we're saying based on where they are on either side of that?
What's funny in just talking to some of my friends that watched the film, when it was screened at a youth minister event, it was hilarious because the ones that grew up evangelical loved it. And the ones that are just like liberal Protestants took the wrong weird parts.
Yeah,
like,
it's fine. Just
they were like,
go for it.
Why? What was that? Like, do you think they really do that kind of stuff? And I'm like, hell yeah, they do. I was like, if the camp I went to thought about the Goliath bit, they would have done it. Like simulation competitive killing. That's like what's more evangelical than that?
Yeah.
Like, let's get people together, obviously for the homeless pacifist Jew, and create large competitive environments and give priority to hyper masculinity. Because when you think of like roared up people for the Lord, like that's what you think. The church history, their heroes were definitely
Samson, man.
Yeah, I mean, like he like ripped a lion apart and shit.
Yeah.
So
David's Mighty Men. That was another one, right? David's Mighty Men was.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Well,
The
like,
hand
you know,
motions
what's funny
there
about that progressive, that youth ministry conference, we know, like, we got a few quotes and there were some great ones in there. And one was like, am I supposed to take Gary Busey seriously as a spiritual advisor? It's like, not really. No, you're not.
Dude, but Gary Busey is the guy who went to a camp and became its manager and never left. I have worked. I've been guest speakers at Christian camps. You know, they bring you in. And usually it's the mainline Protestants rent the evangelical camp because of the climbing wall and jump things that are cool.
Trust falls.
Yeah.
They got way better tech now than it did in era of Camp Manna.
So I go, and you meet the family that lives on the campground and every week of their year is Christian camp. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they aren't neurotic in the way that Gary Busey is, like his Buseyness.
Yes, his
but
Buseyness.
When you talk about somebody who wakes up in the morning and probably has religious themed boxers that are cool, ready to show his friends. You're like, it's like Sunkissed, but with an O.
Yeah.
You know, that's the
Sun's
people
out,
that are-
guns out, dude. With an O.
Exposure to the sun may prevent burning. With an O. Yeah, no, you're right. In fact, we actually, when we were doing a lot of our camp scouting, for where we're going to shoot this thing, strangely enough, one of the things that we found out quickly was Christian camps didn't really want to cater us because they didn't quite get what the movie was going to be. You know, we ended up shooting at a YMCA camp in northern Michigan, but like Christian camps, they pretty much wanted nothing to do with Camp Manna, you know?
Yeah. And it didn't matter. You could tell them, okay, this is the intent behind the film. We're trying to create something that's sort of balanced in its approach and all that sort of stuff. They'd be, oh yeah, interesting. Can we see the script?
Yeah. Can we see the script?
And no callbacks after that.
So, well, in the fall, the only movie I've ever made comes out, and getting permission to shoot places.
Really?
Yeah.
What's it called?
I didn't
It's
know
called,
this.
it's called The Road to Edmond.
Okay.
So there's a youth minister who's affirming of a chick that comes out at youth group.
Okay.
And they tell the youth minister, Cleo, you have 2 weeks to go pray about your vocation and whether you want to, you know, obviously
Yeah.
be on the Bible side or
Yeah.
Or
we know
Satan.
of these things.
And he decides he's going on a road trip and my character, Larry, who lives in a van, runs over his bike, and then we end up it's like a buddy road trip comedy
Nice.
where I'm like,
Like a feature?
yeah, it's 2 hours of like inappropriate religious jokes.
What?
Sounds
That's awesome.
nice.
And so we were filming.
It's
There's
just refreshing
in the road
to hear that
trip
there's other
parts.
people out there trying to do this.
Well, so when Ryan sent me the thing to watch, I was like, hey, this is a genre now.
Yeah, right.
And so there's like 4 or 5 places that are these in the road trip scenes that are, 30 seconds of a movie.
Yeah.
But you had to get permission to shoot there and
Oh, yeah.
all this kind of stuff. So one of the guys in our crew walks up with his like handheld video camera and the sign to like shoot quickly at the place, like legal thing. He's like, hey, we're doing this thing for our YouTube videos. He comes back with it signed, and then the film crew comes in real quick, and
Before anybody knows what happened. Like, damn, that was one hell of a YouTube video.
And I'm like, dude, when they find out that they're in this movie,
I think you'll be all right.
I mean,
That's so Borat of you.
yeah, I didn't do it. I was like, how did you get permission to shoot here? At this, like giant recreation of the whale, like Jonah's well
that.
in Denver. And then this
Yeah.
like castle run by this Christian anarchist.
Did you go to the Ark? The Ark experience?
Oh, we went to a whole host of crazy things that
We've been wanting to get into that pretty sweet creation museum. See what we can film in there.
you're like,
You got any
so,
contacts?
I just want to make a documentary about like biblical truth. Like, what if you did it where you are just playing a character and you film as that character, like giving a tour of all the, like a tour guide movie, like,
This is 100% Christian Borat.
yeah, but you go into all these like Christian places and you're telling them you're making a travel doc for Christians to experience like biblical truth across America.
Yeah.
And you just go in and you like film it all. And then
Dude,
film
you
the
find
rest
the
of
money
movie.
for that, and I will show up and
Because
film the heck out
that'd
of
be
that.
hilarious. Like you go
Yeah.
in the museum and you ask them questions in the most offensive way, but like with a straight face. And you're like, so like, when the heathens come into the creation museum, like, do you like use the cameras to follow them around and you see them like start to realize just how big the love of God is? Right? Have you ever set fire to a Darwin picture? Because I did once and it smelled of sulfur, which I think signals.
You're in.
They're like, what are you doing? See how you can creep them out. Anyway. So, what has been the responses to the film you didn't anticipate?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a good question because I think it goes along with that first answer is that, so when we were going to make the film, there's a lot of people that just said like, don't make this movie. And it was mostly people that really care about us or like, this is going to be a waste of your time and energy because you're going to get done with this film and your target audience is going to be like, boop, I'm making a, I don't know.
It's making a small pie wedge.
Making a small pie wedge image here. It's
the classic,
sense,
like, you know,
right?
it's not Christian enough. But, you know, like if you're not Christian, you're not going to get the jokes. You're not going to get the humor. It was just kind of what we had heard.
It's not God's Not Dead. And, you know, and it's not American Pie. So what is it? You know what I mean?
Right.
And they're just like, please don't make this. And, we said,
our lawyer
thank
mostly.
You. Yes, mostly our lawyer.
Can't you just make a horror movie? Something that sells.
But so, you know, we needed to. It was something that it's been so important to us for a lot of years. It's just been there. And it's, you know how it is. Like there's certain creative ideas that you have and like sort of they blossom and then you're excited about it and you can sort of set it on the shelf and move on. And this one, we just could not move on. It just was so sort of ingrained in who we were.
Yeah.
And I think even the process of writing the film was so cathartic for us. We became such close friends over that process. We worked a lot of shit out.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think even writing the film in a big way, preserved a lot of the things that we love because it was like this opportunity. It gave us permission to sort of peel back all those layers and find out what there was underneath that was good and pure and all that stuff. And then be able to just torch the rest of it. But I think within that, it was just, it created this really cool opportunity for us to craft something that was new and different. And so going into filming the movie and then presenting the movie, I think the thing that we constantly are keeping our eyes out for is how big is the audience that actually is willing to watch this thing. And so we just did a screening. It was awesome. We did this premiere screening, about 550 people. It was so fun. This extra comes up to me after the filming because we did it in the hometown where we filmed the movie. So he comes up to me after the screening and he's like, "Hey man, good to see you. So I brought my dad here tonight and he's a baby boomer. And he was a pastor, and I was really nervous. I think it was like Assemblies of God or something like that, like pretty, you know, intense. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, and he loved it. He was just laughing the whole time. He thought it was great. To me, that's actually the best response that I could get because I know those like us are going to love it. I made it for me. I made it for us. But it's always been through that lens of like, will there be a demographic
those still at
of
home
people,
in that subculture?
Yeah, like will they still feel loved? Will they still feel like they belong in this? Like, you know, it's more like their kids razzing them than it is like some asshole on the outside going like, look at those goofs. And so that response to me, like that is the response that I get the most excited about just because you can tell that part of the heart of it's coming through. It's not that funny, but
no. And another thing that surprised me is I thought that people were going to be more. Like I took my really conservative cousin and aunt to like our first cast and crew screening, and I thought that they were going to come out of it just like, "Wow, Eric, why did you include this and that?" But it's not at all. Like I'm actually quite pleasantly surprised that the film has. I think we've done a good job balancing that line where it's not really offending people on the right. In fact, it tends to be offending like people on the left more. People who wish that there was a better depiction of like, you know, women, for example. And minorities in the film and stuff like that. More diversity.
But it's satire, right? It's all the choices are intentional.
It was like if you included.
Look, once you get so progressive, expectations of a sense of humor is like actually the biggest problem with progressive Christians are they're not fun.
They're not fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you're kind of saying that it's the same reason why, you know, Seinfeld won't do universities anymore, right? Like you get to this certain level of sort of PC awareness and suddenly you can't step outside of it and understand like context.
They just don't know what they can say anymore. And I think like with our film, I mean, if we had made the camp a co-ed camp and it was a boys and girl camp, that film becomes about something entirely different.
Oh yeah.
When you start delving into the Christian subculture.
Evangelicals, if you grew up in that culture, the idea that eternal conscious torment's a live possibility is real. But for most of the rest of the world, it's not. And one of the challenges for Christians, especially those that were motivated either now or previously by eternal conscious torment, is how do you tell the good news without beginning to convince them that they're going to live forever and it's either going to be in heaven or hell. And primarily that destination is determined by a true false test about the attributes of Jesus. And, the compelling part in Camp Manna is the friendships and the community of outcasts who bond while that narrative's being played out. But the compelling part in the end, jumping off in the baptism of sense and into the water, the baptism is into that community and into a community of friendship and affirmation that he didn't expect that subculture to have in it. And so he's going to show up and not want to hear any of the sermons, but he did get affirmed and embraced in ways that were not, you didn't know that narrative had it in it to do so.
I think like one of the things that I know, I listened to your interview with Ira Glass a while back, and one of the things that he said when he was talking about Come Sunday, I thought was really insightful. And this isn't to sort of over elevate it, but he's like, one of the most interesting people groups and underexplored people groups in the United States are Christians. Because I think that it's exactly what you're saying, right? If you're the outsider looking in, it's just them, right? That's a weird group of people. When in reality, there is so much social strata in there. There's so much ideological strata in there. There's so many different parts and pieces that go on to this. So for our character to sort of show up in this world without any knowledge of the world from the outside, it just looks like them, right? Everyone's the same and they're all, weird and a part of this thing. And then once you get in there, that sort of comes apart and it's just people, right? And you have good guys and you have bad guys and you have allies and you have foes, and all of these things that you see anywhere else in the world also exist within this subculture. And within that, then who are these people that are genuine, that are trustworthy, that you can align yourself with and actually have genuine relationship? But I think that it's really easy to just sort of stand on the outside and look like, what the hell is going on in there? All of those people are the same. I think that's one of my favorite things about what the movie explores, is really kind of breaking down those stereotypes.
So when did you get pitched on participating? Like if their friendship is working on this movie, we're going to have to make it. Now we're really going to make it. Like at what point in the process did
I come on board? I don't.
Well, we've known Evan for a long time. We've worked together on lots of stuff, but he was actually on board as a producer. We've done a lot of projects together where he's been the lead actor. We did a project called For the Life of the World a while back, and Evan starred in that. But he actually came on as a producer, and then through the casting process for Bradley, it just became evident that that was actually a good fit.
Yeah, what he said.
The thing about Bradley was the thing about Evan. Bradley, that was probably the hardest role to cast, because he, out of all the actors, like we went after a lot of comedians and people like that, and we didn't really need them to understand the faith. Because it didn't really need to come even out of a genuine place for each character. But the Bradley character had to completely understand the culture, the world, and love it. And so like a lot of what Bradley says in the movie, a lot of his great lines are improv from Evan, because he knows the world so well,
Yeah, maybe talk about that a little bit, Evan. Like what qualified you to sort of take on that role?
And you do look significantly cooler than you do in the film.
I hate shaving that beard.
Yeah, it's the beard. It's the beard. My wife wouldn't look at me the whole time we were shooting, because she's like, I can't believe the decision I made. I regret. So you need to grow your beard back. So yeah, I think part of it was, I've grown up in the Christian culture my whole life. Went to mainline Protestant school, and then a Baptist. Is Baptist mainline? Depends. Went to a Baptist high school, and then to a Calvinist college, a Reformed college, I should say. And just having gone through all of those various phases where people are talking to you about ministry and that being the thing, and seeing those people in youth groups, all kinds of different youth groups who are, have the affect and kind of always sound like they're orgasming when something cool is happening, and usually that cool thing is around Jesus or something, wonderful about your soul. All of those sort of experiences, and then that being placed on every other kid that was around and experiencing that, when really we have no that's not what we're meant to be doing, I think, but ministry being that goal and thinking like, oh yeah, I know that guy. And I know that most of them my experience was, a lot of that was just incompetency. They were meant for something else, but, sort of really wanting to do something great for the Lord. And that was the motivation, I think, for Bradley, and understanding that world and just knowing the script for, the cultural script for transforming souls. I'm doing air quotes, but transforming souls. So, yeah.
So, did you have a Bradley?
I didn't have a Bradley specifically. I was lucky enough, in my camp experiences and in my school experience, but I always saw the Bradley and was like, oh man, I'm glad I don't have that guy. But, yeah.
A Jewish friend of mine went with me to RA camp, which is Royal Ambassadors. It was Baptist summer camp, but it was like sports summer camp. And at night they did a devotional, but it wasn't one of the like 3 times of Jesus a day type of camp. Well, our camp counselor in our cabin, comes up to me and he's like, I have something for you. I'm like, what? And he hands me this card. He goes, this is a high five card. And I've already wrote your friend on the top of this list, but you had think of 4 other friends that you can pray for every day to lead them to the Lord. And when they walk that aisle, you pull this high five card out and you give them a high five and say, you've been walking them down this aisle ever since you put their name on it. And he was like dead serious. And I'm thinking to myself, like,
were you like trying to take notes? You're like, slow down. I can't get all this.
You're like, so, somebody's like walking the aisle.
What aisle?
To go pray. Yeah.
No,
and you're like, bing. What's up? Prayer warrior in the house. I've been calling this junk for years.
Dude,
I think a lot of the Bradley, because I didn't really have, my youth pastor was cool. Like, I mean, as far as they go, like growing up in church and stuff, but it was like, I think a lot of that Bradley character started to formulate for me when me and Eric first started out doing our company. We were doing a lot of overseas trips with like short-term missions. So we'd go to like India and Africa and, and I remember this guy saying one time to us, he's like, man, we're going to go over there. We're going to get so many people saved, and it's just like, and everyone had a guitar and they're sickeningly holy. I think that's sort of what I always bumped on is they were just like, they were so spiritual and so holy, and everything they said was, as soon as they would just talk about Jesus, they'd be like, well, Hebrews says he's the author and perfecter of our faith, and just all that stuff. And you're just like, man, this is just exhausting hanging out with these people. And that's sort of what Bradley in Camp Manna is meant to be. He's just meant to be like an exhausting spiritual leader. And it's all coming from a really good place.
Yeah. There's a genuineness of it that you're accepting the terms that everyone's giving you. And then you're trying to live that out. But Bradley, he wants to do something good, but he's just not man enough to just go, wait a minute, some of this is bullshit.
Well, if everybody gets handed a script by the people around them, and the script you are given of proper responses and what good and success and all that stuff looks like is mostly connected to the family you were thrown into, which we're not in charge of. And I think a camp situation where everyone has this shared ideology is a good place to explore what does adolescence look like when you're trying to understand who you are and you're a permanent question mark for yourself. And then here's the narratives and stories you use to ask questions. And when you're putting teenagers in leadership positions with other teenagers, that's just like asking for, an explosion of misunderstanding and,
Dude, I worked at a church and I remember graduating high school and like, you're 18 now, you're driving the van. It's like, wait, what? Like, I can't imagine taking my kids and being like, he's in charge. I for sure was not qualified to be in charge. We're going on the highway, like, who wants to switch? I've got everyone's kids in the back, and it's just like, but that's not just physical, spiritual as well, right? Like, it's just like, also, that's your spiritual leader for the week.
Yeah. You're a youth camp junkie when the first time you've drove 12 hours in a day, is driving a youth bus.
Yes, exactly.
Because at 19, you're like, so I've been out a year, so I think I could get in the youth ministry game. And then that summer, you were driving like 13 hours down to Florida. And halfway through the drive, when everyone's asleep, I'm sitting there going, like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Like
I should be in back asleep.
Did you do the possum bus?
a possum bus.
It traveled at night.
Oh.
And so like did you ever do anything like that? So it was like a big old bus with, boys and girls crammed together, sleeping way too close proximity.
Well, you have to have single sex rows.
Yeah. Well, it would have been easier. But and then you just wake up in the morning, you didn't know where you were. And then, so it was like always a surprise. So we'd go to the Smoky Mountains. It actually culminated in Disney World.
Appalachia, surprise.
Yeah.
We did road trip mystery scavenger hunts.
That sounds really
where
fun, actually.
Each night you're at a different place and you have like different clues or videos, scavenger hunts one place or you travel all around. And those were a lot of fun. And if you don't know, when I was youth minister, I never told youth what was going to happen because then they had thoughts about it.
Yeah.
And then if somebody likes it, there's already 3 people that just don't agree with what that person said. So then they're going to just start complaining. And you're like, so they would say, what are we doing? And I would say, what's on the schedule? And they're like, you didn't give us a schedule. Well, and
right.
They're like, when are we going to get there? At the appointed time. Like, when's that? Then. And people come up trying to figure out how to ask me questions. I'm like, no, any information I give you, someone's going to start complaining about it. So no, not going to tell you what we're doing. And,
those are some solid youth pastor tricks right there. There's a whole bunch of them.
There has not been a youth ministry movie about lock-ins.
No, I know,
dude.
I know.
That and short-term missions.
Yeah,
So
we
both of
wanna,
those need one.
Yeah, we have a friend, a couple missionary friends that we did a video for years ago in Botswana, and they just bought like this huge safari land. And we were like, that would be a great film, like a short-term mission trip. They're heading over there. They think they're going to do the Lord's work. They end up getting like kind of basically stuck out in the middle of nowhere. And suddenly you watch their faith, how weak their faith is as it all dissolves as they're trying to survive the night, But like the problem with these kind of movies is even with Camp Manna, the reason it took us so long to make it, people telling us not to make it. It's like, I want to see if something like this can work, if something like your movie can work before we invest more time into this genre because it's
if you go out to, if you do the one in Africa, it's like short-term mission trips meets Lord of the Flies.
Yes, exactly right.
The youth director dies.
Yeah.
And they have no access to content. Quick. And you get like annoying youth person who's like, we really got to pull together with the Lord. Let's do the Lord's Prayer right now, our Father. And like no one else is doing it. They're like, youth minister's fucking dead.
I know.
What do you think Jesus wants from us?
Yeah.
And then they like try to witness to the first people they encounter. And they're like, can we get water first? Like,
Oh, yes. I know where you're going. You got to do it.
Yeah. We did a video
for the best
for Sudan.
We did a video for Sudan.
Yep. You're welcome, Sudan. No, we did a video project.
That's about the most evangelical thing ever. We did a video for Sudan.
It was very hard because we didn't speak African.
South Sudan, of course. No, so in 2006, I went over there, and when we got back, we did it was a video project for, short-term mission group in Sudan. And when we got back, I was looking through all the stock footage.
They gave us all these, hey, here's stuff from our organization. Here's all our backlog tapes. You might need it for the documentary.
There's one clip that's just ingrained in my head. And it was just lines of Sudanese staring at the camera like, what are we doing?
Like an aisleway.
Yeah, like an aisleway. And then the camera just starts dialing back between the row. And a guy just comes around the corner and starts walking towards the camera. And
White
he's like, of course.
Yeah,
and
one of the heroes.
Definitely 44 years old or so. And he's like, we just landed here in Sudan. First things first. Bible's in the message. Then food and water. And he's like,
just summarize.
Yeah.
There was a couple moments like that where it's like, all right.
What if something's got to change? Movie, they don't have food and water and stuff. Youth minister's dead, but they got a whole bunch of those stupid shoe boxes full of toys.
Oh yeah, the Samaritan's purse.
Yeah, they're like,
Christmas
we
box?
will trade you 3 Samaritan's purse boxes for lunch. And you got a bunch of high schoolers bartering shit from Oriental Trading Company and the Dollar Tree.
You just can't help, like, when you see that guy say that, first Bibles, then food and water. It's like you just can't help but create this like skit in your head of him, like, he's like has like a bag of food behind him, but first you got to say this magic prayer.
That's exactly, like, that is what drives satire, right? You see that and you go, that makes me so angry, I have to make a joke out of it because I don't know how to process this otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And in I think if you do a good job, then you can laugh at yourself. And I think that's one of the things that your goal for the film was, let's not put stuff in if it doesn't look like
it feels inauthentic.
Right. And if you don't want, like, the dad of the extra who was a Assemblies of God minister, he's laughing because he has a disposition to that culture that says, yes, so it's just kind of crazy and funny. And I think a lot of times the stereotypes of evangelicals in culture are ones where they are so serious and take all that stuff so serious, they wouldn't know how to laugh at themselves.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's the ones that are like, that walk out of the screenings. They're the ones who have an inability. They're just like, and one of the themes, ironically, is about kind of fear. Like, the movie is about a small boy who shows up at a camp very scared. And by the end, he's taken one step away from fear toward hope.
Yeah.
And it's because that's an important thing for me is I think that's something that I wish the church and stuff would just be able to let go of as soon as possible, is just that fear mentality. And that's exactly what it is. When somebody sees the film and they suddenly feel like we're making fun of them, we're really not. We really love the culture. And in fact, that's why we were particular not to include really sacred stuff in the film. Mm-hmm. There's no jokes about communion, really. There's no jokes about, Easter and stuff like that. Like, the film is more about that male-dominated subculture.
Even in our marketing and all this sort of stuff, when we sit down to the teams, we're like, the joke is about the culture. The joke isn't about the root. It's not, the joke isn't Jesus. It's about all the shit that we've piled onto him and said, this is what he's about. That's what the joke's about. And I think it's really important, especially if we want culture to progress, if we want to challenge people to just open up a little bit more in the ways that they think about this and the ways that they assess sort of what is faith and what is truth and what is belief versus what is sort of culture, or what is you being maybe even manipulated or used or commercialized. I think that within that, it's really important that you got to recognize that not all audiences are where you're at right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think a lot of times, and why we're even doing these podcasts, and I'm sure why people who like you, they know your heart, or they think they have an understanding of your heart, right? So even if something you do can be a little cheeky or something, they know that it's well intended, right? And I think
not that you ever probably have.
There are people that hate listening to the podcast and like to send me edification. But I just feel like it just means I have like a team of prayer warriors, that they got my like spiritual back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
dope jokes on them, huh?
Yeah. So they're probably on May 15th, right? Is that
June 5.
June 5, going to go watch Camp Manna just so they can be a verified review of 1 star, because it is not good to them because they don't laugh at anything.
Oh, for sure.
But
and that's okay.
We challenge them to try to watch the movie and not laugh. That's what I say, because you know what? Their purchase is just like someone that enjoyed it.
I challenge them to get to the end of it and still tell me that you don't understand what we were trying to do.
Yeah, but these people just like
they go in with
don't watch
agenda. Yeah, I know.
They're like, we're boycotting Harry Potter. Has wizards in it. And it's like a giant movie.
You guys, these two laugh, and I just cringe because you're describing my childhood.
Yeah, but Harry Potter is like the best story explaining how friendship can be formed, and like integrity, character, hope, and all this stuff is great. Like, it's the virtues of any teenager growing up. You wish you had friends like Hermione.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
And stuff. So
not so much Ron.
Ron's okay.
I'm just joking. Yeah, it totally is.
You're a Hufflepuff, I can tell.
Well, thank you.
When I was in high school, my friends and I went to a garage sale, You're familiar with these. And
I've heard
there was a giant wizard, and these ladies at a garage sale, they just wanted it out of there, right? This thing is like 7 feet tall, stuffed wizard, right? That like a bazillion Chuck E. Cheese points. Oh. And so they sold it to us for $1, and he brought it back to my house, and my mom lost her mind and made us go out there and cut every star and half moon off the wizard. Just if we wanted to keep it. She's like, you're not keeping that thing unless you take off the stars and half moons. Like this idea of like that was going to magically change something.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, haven't you?
Skulls were bad too. Real bad. Like if I had like a shirt had a skull on it, and I went over to my friend Ryan's house, and his mom drove me home and lectured me the whole way, asking me if I was really a Christian.
Because of a skull shirt?
Yeah, I had like it was this shirt that had 2 rats on it, and it said like, who cut the cheese? I mean, I'm like 6 years old.
You're like,
and there was like this pile of bones on the ground too, and it was like, I don't know.
That's next level, dude.
Yeah. Oh, and that was an awkward ride home.
So what if there was a girl that wore a 2-piece to a youth group swimming party, but that was the shirt she was going to put on over it? Do you either reveal midriff and lead men to stumble?
Which is the greater sin?
Yeah, because men can't be responsible for their hormones and how they treat and relate to women. That's impossible. We need to cover it up. But what if it's a bone-themed cut the cheese, maybe with a half moon on it?
I think you probably just grab a Bible, flip it open, close your eyes, point, and there's your answer.
I think you stone her.
Right.
That's what happens.
Well, I mean, if it's her second offense, the first, like, we have to be a community of grace, Amen.
Mm-hmm. It's not for rat t-shirts.
Just my mother-in-law. Well, yeah, she won't listen to this. My mother-in-law,
my mom's great, by the way. She had me cut the things off, so you can get on that level.
Well, confiscated from my wife when we were dating. Like, this means in the summer in college when she went home, all my Guns N' Roses CDs. And I didn't get them till after we got married. Like, she's like, this is not coming in our house. Like, and she went through her, like, college daughter's stuff.
Wow.
Found CDs that had, skulls and Guns and Roses.
Oh, yeah.
And then probably flipped through the booklet to see. Yeah.
Well, remember the Offspring album? It was like an orange album that had like a skeleton on the cover that was like a black, like almost X-ray of a skeleton.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That one got thrown away in our house too. Just because of the skeleton. I don't know.
But Come Out and Play is good because it has a kid swinging on the front.
Yeah.
That's all. Any other Offspring album covers?
I haven't thought about them in a while. Offspring.
You got a lot of Petra album covers memorized.
Well, who was your favorite lead singer of Petra?
Oh, dude, I don't actually. Petra was before my time. I was more like MXPX,
Yeah, but MXPX is still cool.
I know. MXPX is awesome. There's a couple that escaped, but there's some pretty bad ones.
The best of contemporary Christian bands.
It's
because
pretty
Five
good,
Iron
actually.
was good, and they were like politically progressive. They didn't sing songs about weird stuff. And like every album had these 2 songs where they're like, America sucks. They just killed a bunch of Native Americans and stole land. and if you're like a high schooler and you're like, yeah, screw the system.
One of the few bands that actually challenged the institution.
One of my friends, Trey Pearson, who was Everyday Sunday, so when he came out a couple years ago, the response out of CCM people was just spectacular. Because, I'm sure y'all hung out with people in CCM industry. It's like half of them are genuine Christians and stuff, and the other half are like, will you make more money doing this?
Sure.
Yeah, don't ruin the brand.
And you don't have to, some could say you don't have to be quite as talented.
Mm-hmm.
And so the shock of people I know who have like not identified as Christian for years, but professionally make lots of money singing to youth groups, who are like, I think we really have to distance ourselves from a guy who's still a devout Christian, but came out of the closet.
Mm-hmm.
It's those type of things that I think imprint on the rest of the church that's where a lot of the judgment for evangelicalism is in their ability to create mass market audiences. And like once that money's there, once the market's there, then it does everything in every industry that makes money off marketing and convincing people something's true.
Oh, 100%.
It's just they do it with Jesus, so somehow that's more offensive than if they do it with, I don't know, right-wing ideology on a news channel or whatever. But you should buy gold. You should.
Oh, I'm with you there.
And I have some really great nootropics.
Tripp's going to get into crypto here pretty soon. Don't do it. Don't talk it right
I
now.
got there first. Yeah. I want to create my own alternative to Bitcoin. And I was just going to call it J-Coin. It's for Jesus. It's cryptocurrency if you believe the Bible.
Oh, you're too late.
It already exists?
It already exists. Shoot. I think it's called Prayer Coin. It's real. I'm not joking, dude.
If there's a buck to be made.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about that industry, you remember all the t-shirts and everything growing up where you get like Abercrombie and Fitch, but then, your shirt would say a breadcrumb and fish.
Yeah. I know it. I mean, occasionally I just pull one out and wear it.
Oh, you still have a handful?
Yeah. I have a box of shirts from like youth camps and stuff.
Yeah.
And I found
Fear not.
that if I'm going to a religious event, the best way to have solidarity with all the ex-evangelicals is you ironically wear your old youth group shirts.
Oh, nice.
And my favorite is one that's peach colored, because why not wear a peach shirt with balloons on it that just says "Celebrate Jesus"?
Oh, I'd wear the shit out of that shirt. That's awesome.
Yeah, I
get into that almost
I'm just
unironically.
like, I put it on. People are like, "Oh, yeah." And the other one is Satan is a poo-poo head. Like it just says Satan is a poop head, and it's like
Yours
a cartoon.
are way
Satan.
cooler than the ones that
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the ones that are just so
Like
uncreative. It's just like
FedEx.
turn an Oreo cookie logo into like something about God.
Yeah, what was the Reese's Pieces one?
Gap, God answers prayers. Remember that one?
What about his pain, your gain? And it's like Jesus doing a push-up with
He's
a cross
so
on his
ripped.
back. Yeah, I mean,
3 nails plus 1 cross equals 4 given.
praise the Lord. you know,
So many people got
somebody thought of
saved from those shirts, though. I mean, you're just blasting the world.
craziest youth group sermon. Well, other than when they describe how Jesus died, is a guy who was like telling, he's like, I started to fall into sin, and I was in Daytona Beach for spring break, and I'm like, no one here knows I'm a Christian, so I can do whatever I want. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not how it works. Like,
What?
Like,
I think
he's
God
like-
still knows.
so he's like, I got loaded, and I was like about to hook up with this girl, and when I took off my undershirt was a his pain your gain shirt, and I pulled it off, and I looked at Jesus, and I was like, I can't do this. And I told her, and she's like, I'm a Christian too. So we went to Waffle House and prayed together. I'm like,
Where was this? Daytona Beach?
like he was in college.
Uh-huh.
And he's like going to hook up with this chick, and he takes off his like button up, and his undershirt was a Christian t-shirt that said his pain, your gain. And he realized that Jesus was going to cry if he copulated. So
But real talk, though, like, what if that just like saved some sort of, unforeseen thing in both their lives? Like, what if
I
it
know.
was the raddest
it's
thing?
like
you just kind of made a case for an awesome reason to have that shirt on.
like you just put it on, and
Well, it's like...
what if he listens to this? They're
Yeah.
married.
Yeah.
They have a beautiful
Right.
life.
Right.
So basically what we're saying is
that shirt's the butterfly effect.
you need to have
changed everything.
muscular Jesus doing a bench press of the cross.
But maybe those shirts, maybe that's what those shirts are. The shirts are for almost the person wearing it. It's like short-term missions. It's more for the person going.
Yeah, just wear them inside out.
They're
That way-
also super effective at repelling the opposite sex, which maybe, helped keep some people a little pure.
Yes.
you're saying that your odds of getting the nod, like you haven't put that on your Tinder profile, like everyone you're like in a different Jesus shirt.
All right, I dare you.
This
This is an official dare. I want to
Make
see
a
this.
Tinder profile of all like Christian shirts.
This
I remember
this
the
is a great. Someone listening to this, please do that.
Yeah.
and send it to us.
I mean,
that's a brilliant idea.
I have resources to provide for shirtage. Like you don't have to personally own.
Oh yeah, we've got some from the movie.
I have
go to our Facebook page. I'll send you one if you're going to make a Tinder profile.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
we made one that says, when the trumpet sounds, I'm out of here.
Avi.
Yeah.
Like, where else are you going?
Yeah, there was the one, like, what's that band? What's that really famous guitar, like Gibson, but it just says like Jesus. It says pick Jesus, you know? The Reese's Pieces one, that's what I remember. It just said Jesus, right? In the Reese's logo.
It's not that clever.
No, they're not clever at all. And there's like the FedEx one, and it just says fed up with the devil. It's like,
What if you're like, I'm not all the way fed up? We have like a complicated relationship. We had one that just said, let's talk about sex. It's a purple shirt because why not? And it had let's talk about sex in cursive and stuff. And then all the symbols of like STDs and like sexuality, all these cultural symbols. And it was for Christian sex retreats, which again is a whole movie topic in and of itself.
Oh my.
Purity retreats, like True Love Waits and shit.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as a
lot of consummation.
in middle school, I was a Christian rapper, so I got invited to sing at lots of Christian camps.
Is this recorded?
There's got to be some
There-
VHSs.
You walked directly into that one.
There are
You know, this
access
is
to
audio
certain
format.
certain VHS files that were converted into DVDs.
Wait, there's video of this?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
including my dance moves. I have to say,
awesome. I bet you it's
Not
great.
bad? Not bad?
I would say that no one doubted my commitment. But so I'm at this sex
So
retreat.
DC Talk was your favorite then?
Oh, I could spit rhymes like a champ. I basically was Kevin and Toby. That I would do both of those parts because I could rap, but I also was a beautiful, talented singer and had really cool hair and long hair.
Wow.
But I was at this sex retreat and
But anyway, I was at the sex retreat.
So were you at a sex retreat?
this is the craziest sex retreat story ever. And it's been cut out of the podcast the other time I told it, so I don't think it's ever really made it. But I have a new editor now, and Nathan, you're obviously not going to edit the story out. So I'm at a sex retreat, and it's at the beach. Great. Like, you're not just talking about sex, you're seeing the opposite sex in clothing that inspires sexual repression. And so
Inspires repression.
so we come out from like games on the beach, tired, ready for the word of the Lord. And we have snacks and stuff. And this time the snacks are like crappy snacks, like health food, like, you know, like broccoli and cauliflower and carrots and shit, dipping it. And I'm like, what's up with that? We just worked on the beach. We come in, I do a little DC Talk rapping, like I don't want it. And then not the speaker from the retreat, but a nurse comes out and she proceeds to give us scientific information about STDs. And she's describing a lot of things, which you're like, I'm in 8th grade. And the first time I saw a vag was at that youth retreat, and it was one post removal of chlamydia, and it was just a burnt vagina on the screen, a giant screen. Then I'm like, is that's what's that?
That's what it looks
I've
like.
never seen this before. I'm against sex. And then she goes, and this is gonorrhea. And there's like on the big screen.
Oh, they're just showing you horrific images to terrify you of having sex.
Well, it looked like male genitalia that was growing cauliflower. Oh. And we had just ate cauliflower.
Yeah.
And the youth minister did this on purpose and thought it was hilarious. So like we're putting it together. It's like, that looks like cauliflower. And my youth minister turns around and he's like I
That's
got
pretty
you.
funny.
And then he goes, and then she goes something like, a lot, you know, the wages of sin are death, but in the meantime, it can be painful. Click. And there's a burnt off, like, what did this dude's junk look like when it was removed? And if you just see on big screen in a room full of adolescents, burnt penis. And what was burnt off was cauliflower. I've never ate cauliflower again. And I was like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
Why are you making us promise not to do this? You should have just said, if you have fun and it's not Jesus approved, we're going to laser your dick. And then I would have been like, nah, we can kiss, but that's it. That's all I got. Wow. I don't even want to start down this slippery slope.
Did they have both genders in the room?
Yes. So a bunch of people saw their first.
So awkward.
Like, you know.
We had that like
and then the girls are like, those are ugly.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I didn't design it.
Still kind of ugly.
Yeah. We had a presentation in our school too, and it was like one of the signs of STDs is a discolored discharge. That was the phrase. And my buddy, he did that. He said, "What's discharge?" And I've never seen, like, as soon as you started explaining it, he's like, "Oh no, I've asked that question." He just turned beet red and sat there and just put his head down in his. He's like, oops, I shouldn't have asked. That's where you learn not to ask questions in those kind of scenarios.
That's the advantage of homeschool. You just don't even.
Yeah, because your mom's going to answer.
Yeah.
Hey, Mom. My discharge seems a bit off color. It smells different. I don't know if it's because I was eating a lot of pineapple or if
or cauliflower.
What's up with this?
Yeah, you tend to avoid those topics in homeschool. For sure.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
So
always go off the rails like this.
No
cast.
Not only when it's special.
Oh,
and it tends to happen when it's more in person.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
I always like it more. There's people that listen to podcasts. Some of them are like, I only want the 90-minute extremely nerdy the whole time things, and the other ones are like, yeah, those are fine.
Right.
I kind of like it when you're drunk live.
Yeah. No, but you are right. There's something so different about doing it in person. Like that's why it was super important to drive out here. Just
because
I mean, to just hang out with someone that you kind of met over the phone or whatever, it just doesn't work.
Well, I'm glad you're not like you. Actually, I think I would have preferred a more straightforward interview. I don't know why I drove out here. I'm going to be complaining about it all the way back.
No, it's been great.
So, what's the, tell us the launch process. Like what all is on the agenda for your relationship to this film going forward? Like where?
Yeah, good. Well, I mean, it kind of is dependent on when this gets released, right? So
I think it comes out and it was whatever day Ryan wanted.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's like right next to the release. It's like a couple weeks before.
Yeah, it'd be great if it was available.
So the official trailer will be out within the week here, and then the film itself will be out on June 5.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's
all
available.
Sorts of fun around that.
Yeah, it's available on all of your traditional VOD platforms: iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, Fandango now.
But I mean, the reality is it's a pretty small movie, and it doesn't look small, but it's been a labor of love for some time. So for us, sort of any extra effort or push that we can get behind it is really essential. It's really important. Mm-hmm. So if you listen to this and you don't think we're a couple of douches, check out the trailer. And if you pre-order the film on iTunes, that's the thing that really, really helps. Because if we can get enough people to pre-order the film before it releases on June 5, it pushes it into that news and noteworthy section.
Yeah.
And that's like on a tiny film with a small marketing budget. That's what gives it that opportunity to be noticed. Cause the thing is like so much of this will just be about exposure, not whether or not, if people don't like the movie, it's just not going to go anywhere. And we'll have to accept that. We think they will, obviously, but there's still that barrier of just like, there will be so many people that don't know that it exists. So anything that we can do to just get it into the public sphere is really what we're trying to do right now. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. And it's not like Avengers Infinity War where it needs to have a big opening weekend, right? This film is going to open on VOD platforms and it's going to be in our life, for a long time. It's going to have a long tail because it's the kind of film, that's going to be talked about. It has to be shared, right? And,
the legacy of Gary Busey will live on through us for many years.
So what? Yeah, tell me the most shareable, crazy Gary Busey story during the.
I should just tell my favorite.
Yeah, go for that.
Yeah.
So
don't
there's
tell
a
your
lot.
second favorite.
My favorite
Here's
favorite.
my
I probably
favorite.
can't tell. No, it was a fascinating experience for sure. But my favorite is, so when you're filming, you've got the audio track rolling and then you've got the video rolling, and you use a little clapper deal, right, to sync it together. So we're filming, and we're doing these salvation skits, in the movie.
Oh, yes, they are.
So the camera cuts, but the audio doesn't. So I'm watching playback on some of these takes like months later, right? We're editing it together, and I'm looking at some alternative takes, and the camera cuts so the screen goes black, but the audio keeps going. And the arrangement that Eric and I had was I would stay by the monitor and I would work with sort of the ancillary cast, and Eric would work directly with Gary all the time. So Eric spent a lot of time with Gary over 5 days, and Gary, I don't think he even knew I was one of the other directors.
No, he definitely did not.
I don't think he even knew that Eric was one of the directors.
Not a week later.
But so anyway, you hear this post roll of audio going, and all of a sudden I just hear Gary. I say, hey, Eric, you ever take a bean and put it underneath your lower lip and save it for a snack? What? And Machiela's just,
I was just like exhausted by him. Just like, no, Gary. No,
never done it. It was to the point where that wasn't even weird. He was just making conversation.
Here's the thing though about the Buse. He wanted to do, and he still does, like he wants to perform.
Yes.
He loves giving you energy, feeding off the crowd's energy. He let us know up front, like this is sort of how he wanted to work, and like that if we wanted him to say specific things, like cue cards are best for him, but we didn't want him to say specific things. So there's only a few moments where we needed him to say something specific. Basically, we just wanted him to be Busey. So we wanted him to like, here's an idea, just talk about it, just run with it. And the thing is, when he saw all the extras in the crowd, that's when he would be at his like kind of peak Busey. The small scenes when it was just like one-on-one, like it wasn't so much of that Gary that you kind of see on Celebrity Apprentice or Dancing with the Stars. He had this one scene in particular where he was supposed to jump up on this stage for the God Games kickoff with a praise band and he wanted to just
take that visual image,
play guitar with the praise band. But he grabbed the guitar and they were just teaching him the chords for the song that they had because he knows how to play guitar really well. He learned all Buddy Holly songs when he did like the Buddy Holly role back in the 70s, the one that he got nominated for an Academy Award for another lifetime ago. But like he grabbed the guitar and he just started singing and improvising lyrics. And he's just like, I'll see you there dancing there. We'll be one with me when we get up there to heaven.
He's just making it up on the tape.
Oh, that whole song is
he's just making
it up.
And then afterwards he comes up to me. He's like, did you hear me up there? I made that song up. I don't know where it came from. He's like, but I want you to do me a favor in the credits, put words and music by Gary's Angels. So if you actually look in the credits, Tornado of Love goes past and it says words and music by Gary's Angels.
But these are the things you have to strategize though. With a small film, that was part of the strategy. Going into it saying, okay, who can we afford that would be willing to take this role on that would also give this a little bit of like, at least like, like a, turn ahead or whatever, right? It's like, well, what if we just write the character for someone that probably isn't going to say what's on the script anyway. And let's just design the character around that. So Cujo in the film is an ex-Vietnam vet that started this camp.
Who's Gary's character?
Yeah, Gary's character. And he's a little loopy. But he's supposed to be. So we sort of wound it up and then we just put Gary in there. And part of that, I think, even kind of went back to, we did a lot of documentary work early on. Eric was talking about that earlier. And it was like, you're making this narrative film, and in all the other parts of the film, you're telling a narrative story. You've got all these actors. And when you got Gary on there, it almost turned into a documentary where you just like wind him up and then he just goes and you're editing in your head and you're like, oh, okay, I think we got it.
Yeah. I heard a line in there that works. It's kind of like that.
And by works, you mean whatever crazy thing he's going to say. But we wanted that. And that's not like hating on Gary. It's really saying like we hired Gary to be Gary. And he came into the film wanting to be Gary. And so it worked for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does a whole like, he did a 9-minute take where he told, 100 extras in a room his near-death experience story. And he loved it. Like he wanted to. It was one of the reasons he wanted to be there. He wanted to be able to like actually do a film because he considers himself very spiritual and very, very faithful. And most of the roles he's given, don't allow him to kind of talk about his faith and his spirituality and stuff. So he really saw it as a blessing. And I think that's why he's so great in the movie is because he wanted to show up and deliver, and he did.
It's funny. I mean, he'll say some stuff and you just be like, what the heck is he talking about? And then the next thing he'll say, you'll be like, oh shit, I hope he's right. It's like John the Baptist crazy. You know what I mean? It's very much like that, just sort of like, what is going on? And also like, that seems kind of awesome.
All he eats is honey and locust.
Really?
No, that's not true.
I mean, like, he's probably the only person. Like, how many people, if someone said that with a straight face, would you go, that's possible?
Yeah, right. For him, 100%.
But it was pretty great with like Gary when he would. So right after he did that, he was going to go do Dancing with the Stars. So he was trying to slim down a little bit. And his wife was there on set often. And he'd wait for her to turn. I'd watch him. He'd be like staring at her out of the corner of his eye. And as soon as she turned, he would like grab chocolate off the craft table and just like slam it in his face, Cause he was like, he knew he'd get yelled at by his wife if she saw him, hammering her Reese's Pieces. And so it's just like, that was kind of Gary. Yeah.
He was genuine though. I mean, you've seen the film, right? That scene on the porch, like he was 100% in it, and something he brought, he dug in somewhere and brought, maybe it was his last hurrah, or whatever, but he brought Ian, the other character, right up to his level. And that scene really, really works. And it's one of those weird scenes in the film where, like I said, we went into it making satire. And, we wanted to be true to sort of the heart of the film, but we shot that scene and we're like, oh, like that scene is working on a way deeper emotional level than we intended. And that's to Gary's credit. Like he pulled that out of nowhere, and he had a couple moments where he really elevated the film in sort of the opposite way than we hired him to do, which is pretty crazy.
You would definitely get some takes where afterwards, like the extras and people around would just all of a sudden start clapping because they got the full like Busey experience,
Oh, I got one more for you though. You want one more?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any better way of concluding podcasts than with Busey stories. I mean, I'm over 1,000 episodes in, and that's never happened. Okay. I've asked so many theologians. I've said, like, do you have a Gary Busey story? And they're like, no. I'm like, whatever, we're done.
Okay, so I don't know the full backstory to this, but somewhere along the way, Gary and David Hasselhoff had some sort of an altercation.
In the 80s, surely.
In the 80s. And there is a line.
And I'm pretty sure there was a woman involved between the two.
There may have been, right? So there's a line in the film where one of the characters falls in the water. He can't swim. And another one of the characters from his cabin like runs out to get him or whatever. And the line is, I'll be your Hasselhoff. Well, Gary and all the extras are sitting on the beach. We're out in the lake filming. He just kind of hung out, which is really cool. He just kind of hung out there or whatever. So we're filming, we're rolling on a take, and the kid is like, I'll be your Hasselhoff. And all of a sudden you just hear from the beach, hey, we're rolling. No Hasselhoff. And he's just yelling, no Hasselhoff, and running at the lake, yelling, no Hasselhoff, while we're rolling.
He's like, no Hasselhoff. Don't mention him. No Hasselhoff. And he's like, would be yelling, cut. Like, We
never cut a take. He cut all of his own takes for us.
He would just walk off camera. It's like, all right, I'm done.
Yep.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. But you didn't cut yourself off. You didn't end your own takes.
No. Yeah. He's a polite gentleman.
Yeah. Well, everyone has goals in life.
Yeah.
To get in the point, to bring a little animosity from the 80s into church youth camp. Okay. We're going to put the soundtrack out. I think that you should release that one song, Busey and the Angels, on iTunes.
I know.
Gary's Angels. We probably have a full take of it. We could probably dig it up.
We definitely do have a full take of it. We just need to.
That's a great idea. We need to it needs to have a little bit of a bouncing bubble like Korean, karaoke thing or whatever.
You could release it as a karaoke track.
Be dope.
Well, and Evan, Evan created that Hepity Hey Disciple song that he sings on stage with the banjo, and we got a full version of that too. So we do have a couple Camp Manna originals.
Well, I mean, could you try releasing them to the CCM market? And, you call up, and you record it obviously because it'd be funny.
But recording it would require a reunion.
No, I meant record you talking to a Christian music.
Oh, yeah,
agent
yeah.
about we're like, we did this Christian film and Gary Busey contributed an original track. I really want to talk to you about getting it on CCM radio. And
like, would we have to call it a Christian film to do
that? Just to get the guy on the phone. I think you get some like executive from where you're like, we want to nominate it for a Dove Award. That's your like campaign is get Busey at the Dove Awards. Like, look, if he's nominated,
that's a worthwhile
he's
effort.
going. And they're like, why is he at the Dove Awards? And you're like, nominated best song out of a Christian screenplay.
Best original Christian film song.
Yeah.
By Gary's Angels.
Gary's Angels. I mean, it was on the credits.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, yeah, go watch this movie. Pre-order it on iTunes is the nicest thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Evan, you've got all our, do you mind if we plug the social stuff?
No, go for it.
Sure.
And also, it'll be on the page itself.
Yes.
Like if you go to the episode page, because no one does that.
No one goes to your episode page?
Less than 1% of the people that listen from a website.
Don't when I go listen to podcasts.
But, but if you're wanting to follow the Twitter so that you can know when Gary's Angels
will be singing to you.
Will be singing.
Right. There could even be a ringtone in the mix here. We could.
We got a lot of giveaways.
You just got Busey'd.
Yeah, you can go to the website, our website, where you can get everything. That's www. Do you say www anymore? Do you say campmannathemovie.com?
Campmannathemovie.com.
And then all of our handles are on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter are at Camp Manna Movie. So you go there, check out.
Some asshole bot stole campmannamovie.com, so we had to put a the in there.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Not joking. For all you out there, hot tip, don't pre-search the website that you want to use a week before you actually go buy the domain. It activates some bot.
Yeah.
But
I have a bunch of URLs waiting for a project just because I think they work.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what? Like Kyrie Irving, Flat Earther?
No. My favorite is Godsplaining.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's either a documentary that's like a serious religion documentary or just you are serious. It's the Christian Borat film.
Yeah.
Godsplaining, where you are an apologist going to witness to famous secular people.
We're in.
And
okay. Let's keep that conversation going because that sounds fun.
Heck yeah.
Gettingbloodyforthelord.com.
Whoa.
Yeah. Because why not? Like you want to be ever more washed in that blood.
Uh-huh.
I'm like that could get used at some point.
Not just a trickle. Wow.
God-ish.
like self-edit?
Like,
God-ish. It's goddish. It's sort of a God
God-ish.
Thing.
Oh, okay.
God-ish.
Right,
I have to look. I've bought some really Revangelical, Devangelical.
Those are great, actually. Devangelical. Is Godsplaining your term as well? Did you come up with that?
Yeah, and then
that's awesome.
Revangelical was going to be, when you have like money for no reason, I wanted to create a website for recovering evangelicals, and they all what are you dealing with? And those like videos people make where they have like the face blurred out.
Yes, they're all in shadow.
Yeah. So you go to the website and
usually they're old mafia guys.
Dude, that's great.
And you can't see the face, and there's like some guys like, "Hi, my name's and I'm a recovering evangelical. I used to get washed in the blood all the time. Like sometimes I'd look in the mirror and say, you total depraved piece of shit. God hates you. And I knew it was true."
Scene.
Like where people are like, what the hell's this?
I feel like everybody I know would have like much lamer confessions. Like, and I used to listen to Phillips, Craig, and Dean.
Have Amy Grant was so hot on that Baby Cooper album. And since it was technically secular music.
But real talk, Baby was pretty good.
I lusted.
Oh, that was another one. That in youth group, started playing Baby Baby for us on like a VHS of like her music video. And somebody stopped it. He's like, now, before we go any further, do you know what's wrong with this video? And it was some guy in the front's like, it's not her husband. Correct. That's not her husband. And that was,
Kirk Cameron's taking this note to heart.
Yeah, that's right.
Well,
never kissed a lady in a movie that wasn't his wife.
There you go. I hope all of you know that throughout your acting career, it's essential to preserve your witness, not to kiss anyone you're not married to. Because we all know, even if it's in a theater, if you kiss them in your head, you just banged.
Yeah.
And Jesus sees what's in your head. Mm-hmm. He knows what's in your head and in your heart. He is like Elf on a Shelf times 10. So pray about that and go watch Camp Manna.
Thanks, Tripp.
Thanks, Tripp. This was fun, man.